Now I'm going to talk about population growth rate in developing versus developed. And I think one particular diagram is going to clarify what I'm talking about over here. I'm going to make a nice big diagram to show as to how things work. I'll place time over here and I'll break it down into 4 phases. ठीक है. And the birth and the death rates. So basically phase 1 के अंदर I will be talking about LDCs. Now if you don't know what LDC stands for, you write the whole thing. Least developed countries. LDCs are least developed countries. उसके बाद we're going to go into phase 2 जो कि एक developing का phase start हो जाएगा. Pretty much all the way from here to here ये सारा developing phase है. And finally in phase 4 we're going to talk about what happens to the population when they reach the developed stage. Okay, so the birth rate is high and consistent in phase 1 for least developed countries like Afghanistan or Congo or something like that. Then in phase 2 developing की range के अंदर है based on obviously the GDP, but then it starts to fall quite quickly. In phase 3 it's falling, and then in phase 4 it becomes fluctuating. As far as the death rate goes, the death rate is highly fluctuating for the least developed countries, and then it falls quite drastically and flats out. So based on this, what we see is, as far as population growth is concerned, in our phase 1 the birth rate and the death rate are quite fluctuating, so there's not much people being born over here because the number of people being born and the number of people dying is quite high as well. So we can expect like low population growth over here as well as over here, because either the birth rate and the death rate is too high or the birth rate and the death rate is too low. जो सबसे ज़्यादा population growth है वो यहाँ पर है. You have a high population growth because there's a big difference between the birth and the death rate. Okay, और यहाँ पर you have relatively lower, बल्कि lower is not a good word to use. Medium to low population growth. So now why is this happening basically? The reason why in phase 1 you have a high birth rate and a high death rate because you have many wars, famine, lack of education, and family planning, you know, ये mind एक thought process है for countries where you have a very high death rate. You tend to have a lot of kids because you know that if some die, you will still have a few left. This was the case a couple of generations ago in Pakistan or in Bangladesh. रूरल एरियाज के अंदर ये थॉट प्रोसेस अभी भी है because of the high death rate at birth. You tend to have more kids and then the surviving numbers are relatively lower. In phase 2, what happens is that your death rate goes down very quickly, and the main reason for this is the improvement in healthcare. The birth rate is not falling as fast. Healthcare मतलब जो लोग पहले बेसिक बीमारियों से टाइफॉइड एंड मलेरिया एंड स्टफ लाइक दैट इनसे जो लोग मर रहे थे, now you have like decent vaccines and things like that, so you don't have so many people dying so quickly of these causes. And later on, obviously, there is an improvement in education, right? In phase 3, there is an improvement in education and healthcare. So जिसकी वजह से the birth rate starts to go down, the death rate is already quite low. And last phase के अंदर when you reach the developed, the thing is the birth rate becomes fluctuating, is because maybe they don't have time to have kids, they don't have time for the responsibility of the kids. The life is too economically and career oriented, and so the people choose not to basically have so much kids. And the death rate is quite low also. Japan is going through one of this. Even the US and the UK, they have a very low um, birth and the death rate, and so the population growth rate compared to a lot of many different countries in the world.